Good evening and welcome to the virtual college exploration for all Virginia students, sponsored by the Virginia Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Counselors and StriveScan. We really appreciate you joining us this evening. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and your microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you during this session. This is one of many different sessions that are happening throughout this week, so be sure to check out the full schedule at strivescan.com/Virginia to register for other sessions. The presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website, strivescan.com/Virginia. I would now like to turn it over to our presenters.
Awesome, thank you and welcome everyone. I'm going to get my screen sharing here. But again, yes, welcome to the do's and don'ts of essay writing. My name is Rebecca Drury, and I am joined with my esteemed colleagues from 3 other institutions, and we are super excited to have you all here tonight. Of course, we wish we could be in person, but we will make do with this virtual world that we are all getting used to. But a little bit about us. My name is Rebecca Drury. I am an associate director at the College of Charleston. I have been working for the college for 5 years now and actually graduated from the College of Charleston in 2015. I am from Virginia, from good old Lynchburg, Virginia, if anyone out there is from Lynchburg. And I actually recently moved back to Virginia and will be based out of Richmond, recruiting students from the DMV for the College of Charleston. Luis?
Good afternoon. My name is Luis Portillo. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions with the University of Delaware. I am just now finishing my 3rd year with the University of Delaware, but starting my 9th year overall in admissions. I am, like Rebecca, a regional. I live in Northern Virginia, and I serve the entire DMV as well. Erica?
Hey, I'm Erica Riesbeck. I'm an Associate Director of Admission at the University of Richmond, entering my 5th year with Richmond, 15 years overall in college admission, always in the great Commonwealth of Virginia, and a native of Newport News. Whitney?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Whitney Puckett. I'm the Assistant Director of Communication and International Admission for Hollins University. I'm a Virginia native. I grew up in Blacksburg. And I actually went to Roanoke College, and I actually was an English teacher for the last 16 years. I'm brand new to Hollins into admissions and really excited to be here.
Awesome. So that is a little bit about us. And now before we jump into the nitty gritty, we want to take a little bit of time to give you all a brief snapshot of our institutions, and we'll get started with the University of Delaware.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. The University of Delaware, we are a medium-large institution. We've got about 18,500 students, undergraduate students on our campus. We are the flagship school of the state of Delaware, actually the only flagship school of the state of Delaware. And we have over 150 majors, over 110 minors, and over 50 4+1 programs for an undergraduate degree and a master's degree within a 5-year time period. We are a Division I athletics school. We compete in the Colonial Athletic Association, and we have over 450 clubs and organizations. We are located in Newark, Delaware, which from DC, to give you more of a relative kind of outlook of it, we're about a 2-hour drive. If you live in Richmond, we're about a 3-hour drive. Obviously, with that traffic on 95, it could always play a deal. And then if you're in the Tidewater area, you'll take the bridge across the bay, and it's about a 3-hour drive from there as well. Next.
Alrighty, so College of Charleston is located right in the heart of downtown Charleston, South Carolina. We are a medium-sized liberal arts institution with about 10,000 students, over 140 different majors and minors to choose from. And being in the heart of downtown Charleston provides our students with a lot of different opportunities in the classroom, outside the classroom, professionally, personally, and academically as well. Like the University of Delaware, we are also in the Colonial Athletic Association, and basketball is our big sport. My big joke is I like to think we don't have football still because we're still too busy being at the beach during football season, due to the fact we do have 3 beaches within 20 minutes of a drive from campus. Our students are very active in and outside the classroom with research opportunities and internships, but also we have over 240 different clubs and organizations. Everything from an anime club, belly dancing club, Quidditch team, you name it, we most likely have it for you. But really the whole city of Charleston is our campus. And we hope to see y'all in Charleston soon. And that's my little bit, University of Richmond.
Hey, so the University of Richmond is categorized as a small liberal arts and science college, but unlike some of our peers, we also include a top-ranked business school, the country's first undergraduate school of leadership studies, law, and professional and continuing studies. Virginians represent only 18% of our overall population of 3,200 undergraduates. We represent almost every state and territory, as well as about 70 different countries. With an average class size of 16 students and 100 majors and minors, students really are able to pursue their passions and work really closely with professors. 90% live on campus in a very tight-knit community. And even though we're small, like our mascot, the Spiders, Richmond also competes in Division I athletics. We believe that each and every Richmond Spider possesses a pretty distinct set of traits: ambition, curiosity, and determination. And so we help prepare our students in many ways, one of which being the Richmond Guarantee, which will guarantee you funding up to $4,000 to pursue a summer internship or a research project that's faculty mentored. And it works. Our students graduate, go on to grad school at high numbers, find jobs quickly within 6 months. So I look forward to chatting more with you during this essay workshop, and I hope you'll take the time to learn more about Richmond in your free time. Whitney?
Thank you. So Hollins University, as you can see here, we have the unique distinction of being a all-women's institution. We were founded in 1842, and we're rather small. We've only got about 900 students on campus total, including our graduate students. Despite that fact, we do have a good number of majors. We've got 29 different majors, and we specialize in experiential learning opportunities. So we have guaranteed internships starting in your freshman year, as well as study abroad opportunities, undergraduate research, and we also have something called the Baton Leadership Institute, which can provide you with leadership certification while you're on campus with us. We are a D3, Division III athletics, and we participate with the ODAC, Old Dominion Athletic Conference. And we are located in Roanoke, Virginia. So along the back there, there's the Blue Ridge Mountains. Roanoke is in Southwest Virginia. We're about 3 hours away from Richmond, about 3 hours away from DC, and about 3 hours away from Charlotte. So we're kind of a direct route to just about anywhere you want to go.
Awesome. So now getting into more of the nitty gritty here and with those essays that I'm sure every one of you are questioning and getting started on, especially with this application season upon us. But we'll start with more of those do's in regards to essay writing, and one of my favorites being creativity is key. You want to do something different. We as admissions counselors read thousands of essays in a year or over our career. So you definitely want to bring something unique to the table. Let us know you by your essay in ways. We want to see something different, but we also want to get to know you, and that creativity will help bring it out. Maybe you want to write your essay in the form of a poem or in the form of a recipe. All of these different things have been seen in the college essay, and really making it creative helps your application stand out just a little bit more. Kind of on that same topic, you want to pick an engaging and interesting topic. Like I mentioned, we read so many different essays a year within our careers. So helping your essay kind of stand out is going to be that engaging and interesting topic. You know, even if you're picking one of those Common App essay topics, what is going to be different about your story, although it's related to that topic? So really kind of think out of the box, dig deep into your story, and show us something that is going to really bring us as the reader in. one of my favorite things that I have learned and done throughout my education is taking a break and coming back to it. Don't rush that essay. This is something that your potential college is going to see. So you definitely don't want to rush it, but sit down, write a rough draft, take a little bit of time, take a few days to come back to that essay. And you might realize that there's something that you forgot or something that you want to take away from that essay. So being able to take some time away from it and come back to and being able to come back to it is something that it could go a long way. It's something that we all have been there and done. And so just taking your time and picking that creative topic. One of my favorite essays that I read was from a Virginia student. She took the kind of athletics topic, if you would, and put a spin on it. She wrote as if she were her running shoes. And I was like, where is she going with this? And the more that I read, the more I got into the essay and the more I wanted to continue to read it. And by the end of it, I got to see her personality, not just through her shoes, but through her writing ability. And she did end up enrolling at the College of Charleston in our honors college. So it was really cool to see that process and her journey through her essay as well. But keeping it interesting, keeping it engaging and creative, but knowing to take a little break every once in a while and come back to it, and not waiting until 2 hours before the deadline to submit that essay is always going to be important.
Okay, so this is my part. As an English teacher, I felt pretty comfortable talking about these. So the first point I want to go over with you is, as you are choosing which topic you're going to write about and sort of pre-planning your essay, it's important that you think about what you want to present about who you are at your core to us as readers. So what I'd like to get across to you is, you're not just telling us a story. You need to be making a point with your story so that you can distinguish yourself from your peers. Everyone is applying to these schools, thousands of applications, and so this essay is a way that you can stand out, that goes above and beyond what's already in your application. So I'd encourage you to, if you already have a background, say in sports, and that's already evident on your application from your participation, then you don't necessarily need to write an essay telling us about how involved in sports you are, because we already know that. So you might want to think about what I call your gold traits. These are your personality traits, your values, your beliefs, your morals that you want us to remember about you. It could be that you want us to really understand how mature you are, how responsible you are, maybe that you are very adventurous or confident. And some of these traits, as you're brainstorming them, they don't necessarily have to be immediately positive or what, might immediately come across as what we want to hear. So you could say that you are a competitive person, and being competitive could come across as a negative, depending on how you sell it. But you do want to sell it in a positive way. So being competitive means that you really strive for greatness and you're willing to put yourself out there and do what it takes to succeed. And those are what we're looking for in students in our schools. So really take the time to think about those gold traits and figure out how to bring them to the surface with your essay. The second part is, as you are telling your story, just trust yourself. Don't feel like you have to control the story and reveal specific details that you think we want to hear. What you really need to do is show your story to us. So it's different than saying, I am a very mature person, versus showing us maturity through the story that you tell from your life. And it should be an authentic experience. It shouldn't be something that feels prefabricated, manufactured. It should have a bit of grit to it and a bit of real life to it. And you do want to make sure that it's connected to those gold traits. So if you're trying to sell us on you being a very creative person, then your story should demonstrate you going through the creative process. A lot of those essay prompts, especially in the Common App essay, are asking you to not just tell a story, but make a point with the story. So tell us about a time when you overcame a challenge. That shows resilience. So don't just talk about going through a challenge, also talk about what you learned from the challenge, how it made you grow as a person, and show it happening in your life. And the last point I want to make is just make sure that you submit the cleanest essay possible. Part of that has to go with what Rebecca was saying about walking away. Just after you've drafted your essay, put it away, don't look at it for a week. That way, when you come back to it, you can read it again with fresh eyes, because a lot of the time when we're writing, we're inserting phrases or words or meaning that we think is there because we hear it in our head and it's not coming out on the paper. So definitely take some time and come back to it. But then secondly, you're going to want to choose your proofreaders wisely. And I say readers, plural, because you need to have more than one set of eyes on this paper. So definitely pick people that you know are smart, that are already excellent writers or adamant readers, because they're going to give you quality feedback. And ask them for specifics when you give them your paper. So if you say, can you read this for me? Tell them specifically, I want you to look at how I'm describing my time at softball camp. And do you think that it's realistic? So get them to give you specific feedback. That comes with, though, that they may be very critical. And if they are, don't take it personally. It's just business. You ask them to look over your paper. So make sure that if they say, I don't understand what you're saying here, or I don't feel like this is really clear, that you take that in stride. You go back and you make corrections and then give it back to them again. Ask them to look at it a second time. Is this better? Is this clearer? Did I do what you were looking for? All right, that's all I've got there.
Now let's talk about the don'ts. The first one, don't waste the opportunity. This is the one part of your application that you really do have full control over, right? You are going to be able to, as much time as you invest in this essay is what we're going to see on the other side. It's a time for you to figure out kind of how you want to market yourself, how you want to brand yourself to colleges. You're telling your story, sharing your story. That's where we learn about you and your own personality and those values and traits that Whitney was talking about. So don't waste that opportunity talking about something other than you. It needs to be about you in your essay. Another thing that you need to, of course, be completely conscious of is not waiting until the last minute. I am fully guilty of being an awful procrastinator. That's not what you want to do in your college essay. In fact, some people will not realize that there might be a supplemental section that might require you to write even more essays or short answers. So you need to be on top of your college applications. You need to check to see, do I need to write more than just a personal statement? Are there additional essays that I need to complete? Because those additional essays, those supplements are sometimes used to figure out how interested you are in a university. And we can tell when you rush through your writing because there tend to be mistakes or it doesn't seem like your thoughts are fully formed. So do not wait until the last minute to write your essay, please. Start now. We've all been locked indoors, so COVID has given you plenty of opportunities to start working on some of those drafts. And try not to pick a cliche topic. This is going to be hard for you because you're all the same age and you've had many of the same life experiences. But there are certain topics that keep coming up that we read on a regular basis that are considered cliche. Examples of those, the sports injury. You know, being sidelined and having to reevaluate your path in sports. You can sometimes write about these cliche topics, but realize that other students are doing the same thing. Cliche topics also include, you know, I went to a developing country where I learned that poor people are also happy. This is literally something we read all the time. So think outside the box. Try to think of topics that maybe are a little bit more personal and specific to you so that you don't fall into writing some of the same essays that we're reading on an everyday basis. Louise?
Awesome. And of course, I forget to unmute myself. Is it a Zoom meeting without someone forgetting to unmute themselves? My colleagues are all correct. And I think for more points on the don'ts of the essay writing, I think Erica mentioned it best. Don't try to write what you think we want to hear. You know, this process the essay writing is so subjective, and it's evident in the 4 institutions that we have represented here, 4 very different institutions that are looking for different things, and not only 4 different institutions, but also 4 different types of readers, right? So you may write an essay and be applying to Delaware and College Charleston because we're very similar in some aspects, but I may love an essay completely, and you know, Rebecca may completely not like it. And it's not that we're going to get together and discuss it because we work with 2 different institutions, but you really want to write who you are as a person. Because what we want to hear, what we want to read, you have no idea what kind of day we're having, what type of mood we're in, anything like that. So just write your true, honest self. That is the best way for you to go about this process, right? Because the aspect of your essay is for us to kind of figure out who you are and what type of person we're bringing into our community. Because you're not only coming to us for an academic purpose, you're also coming to us for a social purpose, like to live with us for 4 years, right? And then my second point, you know, don't get hung up over picking the right prompt. We have a phenomenal colleague that I see as a mentor that's been in the game for almost 25 years. And, you know, talking to him, he always says this when we're on panels together. He says, don't worry about the prompt. Write your story. And 99.9% of the time, that story is going to fit one of the prompts, especially on the Common or the Coalition essays. I think about 80% of the stress you guys put on yourselves is, well, which prompt should I pick? That it's going to be the perfect prompt. There is no perfect prompt. There is no perfect essay. Let's be honest with ourselves. You know, the fact that we don't have any Walt Whitmans at the age of 16, 17, Harper Lees, you know, although we hope that you do expand to these phenomenal authors at our institution so that we can claim you as alums. Right now at 16, 17 years old, we really hope that you have sort of a vanilla lifestyle, right? We're not hoping that you are picking a prompt that's going to shatter our beings when we're reading your essay. So just write your story, be honest to who you are and representing that. Erica said it best. This is the one portion of the application you have full control over. Okay, so it's that, because by the time you're writing your essay, your transcript's already sent in, your letters of recommendation have already been written and sent out. So this is the time for you to really take into perspective of who you're trying to portray, that you are, and just make sure that you're portraying your true person. And I promise you, it's going to fit a prompt. You want to know why I can promise you that? I can guarantee it, because one of the prompts on both the Coalition and the Common App prompts is an open prompt, meaning write whatever you feel that you want, right? My last point is, and Whitney and I, when we discussed this earlier, you know, her being a former English teacher, I told her, don't wring my neck for this one, but don't stress about the structure of your essay or personal statement. You know what I mean? I think you guys as students are so ingrained with the introduction and the body and the conclusion. I always tell my students, you know, your story is not done. You're 17, 18 years old when you're writing this, and your story has really just begun. So for me, especially for me, and this is talking, you know, if you're looking at Delaware, and I read your essay, for me, I kind of want to know who you have been so far, what you see yourself doing now, and what you hope to do in the future, and what Delaware can do for you to actually help you develop that into the future, right? Because if you're so focused on writing like the introduction and the conclusion, you'll get more hung up on the conclusion than you do the introduction, you know, and the whole structure of it. And that adds a little extra stress. And so for my students, I always tell them, just remember, this is not the do all sale. And I think, Erica, you mentioned the supplemental questions. And I think more so this year than ever before, especially with a lot of schools going test optional, looking at the supplemental questions is going to be very, very key for all of you as you go through this process, because the supplemental questions will be specific to the university. And so I urge you, like Erica said, and my colleagues did say, take your time with this, walk away if you need to, and come back to it, because you will be writing more than one essay. And depending on how many schools you're applying to, it's going to be a different number of, I guess, supplemental questions that you're looking at, because this year, being test optional, a lot of us are going to be looking towards the supplemental questions as an opportunity to kind of get to know you better and who you are as a student. So
So I thought before we kind of dive into some of the Q&As, it might be a good idea for us as the admissions counselors to maybe explain our favorite essays. I know I kind of explained mine, but I thought my colleagues might want to explain or tell their favorite essays. And while we're doing this, go ahead and start putting those questions in that chat room or in that chat box, and we will get going on that Q&A. I know a lot of you probably have some questions. So does anyone want to start with their favorite? Luis, go for it.
Rebecca's heard me say this story a bunch of times, but my favorite essay, and I've been doing this for 9 years now, and on average, I'm reading anywhere between 2,000 and 2,500 essays a year, right? So do that math. That's a lot. And in that career, in that professional span, I would say I really only remember 3 to 5 of them specifically. But the one that always sticks out that I always enjoy talking about was like my 3rd year in admissions. And I remember reading the first 3 sentences of this essay, and I was like, wow. But the first 3 sentences of this essay were, I was born to steal, I was taught to steal, I was coached to steal. And I remember reading those 3 sentences, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a felon that I'm gonna bring to campus. And I remember reading through the essay, and I was so excited to continue reading that I remember taking it to my boss at that time. And my boss had known the counselor on the high school side, and was like, keep reading. I've heard about this essay already. I heard it's really good. So I kept reading. And throughout the essay, you learn that the student's father stole for a living, that the mother and father met because dad was stealing somewhere, and that the older sibling had gone off to steal on another side, to the other side of the country. And reading this essay, I still remember to this day, I'm like, I don't know if I can admit this student. Like, I have to take the student conduct board before they even get admitted and stuff like that. And I remember all these emotions. And then I get to the end, and I remember reading the conclusion, and said, you come to find out that the student was all district in stealing bases in softball. And dad had made it to AAA baseball because dad was such a good base runner. And mom was an athletic trainer on that baseball team. And older siblings playing Division I baseball at UC San Diego. And so it goes back to Rebecca's first point of creativity is key. Could the student have come in and say, oh yeah, I'm all district in softball. You read that in my activities list that I'm great at softball and stuff like that. But this student came at it with a completely different twist and had you hooked. Now, am I gonna say that everybody's essay is this grand? No, like I said earlier, we're really hoping that you're living mundane lives and that nothing catastrophic has happened to you that is going to impact you that much. But it's one of those things that I always tell my students, if you can deliver it in a different way with creativity, it's more likely going to stand out than if you just go, oh yeah, I played softball my entire career. I was great at stealing bases. And I was born with it because my dad stole bases, and my older siblings now across the country. The delivery was extremely key in the way we read that essay. So that was my favorite essay.
I have not been reading admission essays quite as long. However, since I did teach English for a long time, I've prepped thousands of students on essays. And I remember one in particular, a student drafted an essay that they actually submitted as their end of course writing SOL prompt, where they spoke about how they single-handedly saved our high school from an invasion of alien bunny rabbits. And he got a perfect score on his SOL essay. So what I think stands out about it is he was already a very charismatic kid and had lots of creativity, obviously, but he was willing to go to the absurd. And it was just a really well-written essay. So for me, at least, what I look for is not necessarily that it has to be something that makes me cry, like Luis was saying, but that it's just really well written. It's really creative in the direction that it takes a topic. And even if the situation is clearly an absurd situation, that it shows creativity and it shows thinking outside the box.
My favorite, well, I have a lot of favorite essays. Every year there are essays that I just adore. I laugh, I cry throughout reading season because we're learning these little like just novellas of your life, just a moment. I have a couple of essays I've collected over the time that I use in essay writing workshops. And so I'm going to share one of the examples with you. This was probably written 12 years ago. And it was a young man who wrote on like two cliche topics, wrestling, so his sport, and going abroad. But he does this wrestling competition in Australia, and he's just describing one night there. And throughout it, he uses dialogue, which we don't ordinarily see in essays. And it worked so well because it added humor, because it's these boys joking on each other. And there's this peer pressure to get a tattoo. And he's standing there like mentally thinking like, why should I not get this tattoo? And he's like, well, my mom will rip my arm off. And, you know, he lists all these funny reasons. And in the end, he decides to stand up for himself and runs across the street and grabs a didgeridoo, which is a type of instrument in Australia, and buys that instead. And so it's sort of a lesson learned about standing up to peer pressure, being yourself, but the delivery of it, especially with that dialogue and being very vivid in the description, having sort of these very specific moments in a person's life are really easier to write in many ways when you sit down versus kind of going on this like macro level and trying to encompass everything about yourself. He just put just a story in his life, a moment in time, and I always enjoy that one.
I think that sort of takes us to one of the questions in the Q&A about the 3 pieces of advice that you would give a student who is asked to tell a story for their prompt. So at least for me, a piece of advice I would give you is not to leave out those imagery details like Erica was mentioning. You know, don't just say first this happened, then this happened, then this happened, the end. Make sure that you are thinking back as you're planning to what do you remember feeling, literally feeling, like touching. What do you remember smelling? What do you remember tasting? And including those sensory details, including either dialogue or commentary, which is talking around the story to give us context and emotional response, also makes the story come alive.
I think a piece of advice I would give is knowing your audience. You know, you're not going to write necessarily something that you wouldn't want your grandma to read or something along those lines. So knowing that that we are the ones reading those essays, and if you wouldn't want your grandma to read it, probably wouldn't want us to read it either.
Awesome pieces of advice, Whitney and Rebecca. Another big reoccurring question in the Q&A is, when should I start writing or thinking about my essay? I see Whitney pointing to now. So go ahead, Whitney, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, the sooner you start, the better, because this is something where I believe Rebecca said it earlier, you know, you don't want to be sliding into home plate trying to get this done. This is not something that you are getting feedback from your peer reviewer or your English teacher the day before it's due. And you also need to give anybody that's going to give you feedback. I think somebody had asked, who do you suggest getting feedback from them? They said, should it be a counselor, an English teacher? I mean, those are great choices, but what you do have to remember is these are people with jobs. You can't hand it to them on Monday and ask to give it back on Tuesday. You need to give them at least a 2-week window to make sure they can fit it in. They can take their time. They can give you real feedback, and that you can give it, you know, give it a second right and then give it back to them and see if they'll be willing to look at it to see if you were better. So you want to start writing it now so that you have plenty of lead time to be able to get as many different reviews as possible.
And I think on that note too, you know, these prompts and the ability to start writing them are out there. I'd say you have the space, and you know, if there is a prompt that you want to write, those prompts are out on the Common App and Coalition app, and so there's no reason not to get started right now, in my opinion. And it just kind of goes back to being able to produce the best essay possible with having the most amount of time given to you as well. Some of those deadlines start appearing October 15th. And so you want to make sure that you're going to give yourself enough time. It's always better to have more time than less time, in my opinion.
Now, obviously, if we have any freshmen and sophomores in the webinar, understand that we're not telling you to do it now, but it's maybe a good idea to have like an Excel sheet or a Word document where you're putting down moments in your life while you're going through them that could come back later as a memory, right? That you can expand on. So the Coalition app does a great job at that, with having that locker room for you to go back to and look at things. But it gives you an opportunity to, like Whitney and Rebecca both said, start now. Erica, what would you say makes an essay unique?
Well, you make your essay unique. There is no magic formula to having a completely different, unique essay. It's really hard to advise students on like a topic that you should choose, because this is such a personal process for you. And so I think, again, if you want, so I've read a lot of books. There's some really great resources for you to use that I strongly encourage you to check out. There's a website called College Essay Guy. Super simple, super easy. And he gives some great advice and examples. I think it always helps for you to see examples of things that other students have written to give you an idea of what might look different or what might have worked well. Again, it's a very subjective, each reader has a different point of view as to what makes the essay unique. But use some of those online resources like the College Essay Guy. I was reading a book called Write Your Way In by Rachel Torr, and she would always make her students make a list of 20 topics they could write about. And she said, the first 10 tend to be pretty like general cliche examples would be like basketball is my life, or I really like the arts and the humanities. And she said it's when you're really digging down in the last 10 topics that you start to come up with these like really weird specific topics. And examples that she used was like, I'm worried about garbage, or I hate my little brother, or I love popping zits. Like, well, okay, we're getting personal. So that is what ends up kind of standing out sometimes as being a unique topic or essay, is because it's all about you. So just think about yourself when picking a topic and what you want to share, and use those resources because they're great.
Yeah, to that point, one person asked, how do you make an uninteresting essay interesting? And kind of what Erica was saying is, you can take some of these, if you start making lists of things that you could talk about and getting down to the bottom of the list, start turning them into metaphors to a certain extent. If you have a very specific coffee order at Starbucks and you want to turn that into an essay, then turn your coffee order at Starbucks into a metaphor for the complexity of your life or how you like to approach things. And that seemingly boring idea turns into a really deep-seated discussion.
Awesome, thank you both. There's another question in here that there's two questions in here that are very similar, and I'll ask the second one. Hold on, where did it go? Oh no, there's too many questions coming in now. What would be some more cliche topics for essay writing? Rebecca, since you touched on it.
Yeah, so definitely that broken bone. Athletics, it's a sticky subject almost. There's definitely ways that you can make those athletics ones unique, but ones that make that topic cliche are not making the team that first go round and working super hard and making it the following year. A lot of us can say that we've had that experience. So we just want to see a little bit more on that end. Erica, I think, mentioned it, and going to those different countries and experiencing that. What about that experience was so unique? And not just focusing on, I went and did service and now I love service. And just bringing out those little details that we would never know unless you told us. So those are definitely two of the big ones that stick out to me, with athletics being high on there. So just remember to kind of bring some uniqueness to it.
Thank you, Rebecca. And there's a couple questions asking about the length of the essay real quick. Follow instructions. There's a reason why we have instructions on it. Obviously, if the Common App essay or the Coalition App essay is at I think the word limit is 650 and you're coming in at 80, we're not going to dock you points for it. But if you're taking over 2,000 words, then that becomes an issue, because what you're doing is being inconsiderate of the next person in line of where we're reading and how we're reading these applications. So just follow instructions with the essays and the supplemental questions. Just because we have a little bit of time left, and I want to make sure we get through as many questions as possible. To our former English teacher, does improper grammar and spelling have a big play in the decision process?
Okay, so I'll tackle spelling first. As far as spelling goes, I'd say there's really no reason to have any misspelled words in your essay. Now, if you get into dialogue and you are using a specific dialect, then you may be able to play with the rules of spelling in order to create a specific dialect. However, otherwise you should not be playing fast and loose with those. They're pretty concrete. As far as grammar, there are some rules of grammar that are finite. And so every time you join two sentences together using a coordinating conjunction, junction, what's your function? You need a comma there. So that's a rule. That's a hard and fast rule. It doesn't change. However, some people, really enjoy the Oxford comma. That's the listing commas. I went to the store and got cheese, comma, milk, comma, and butter. That comma before and, that's the Oxford comma. If I am a fan of the Oxford comma, now I'm not going to reject your application because you don't put it in there, but we might have a heated debate over it, but it's not technically wrong either. So I would just make sure that one of your editors really does know the rules of grammar and can distinguish between what is considered stylistic choices in grammar and what's considered absolute hard and fast rules in grammar. But otherwise, I would say we're human beings. Even though I've been doing this for 2 decades, I still make, little typo mistakes. However, with something like this, where you have months to fine-tooth comb it, they should be almost non-existent. They should not be something that we are catching. Oh, and one more thing, I will say, do not trust Microsoft Word squiggly lines. They are the devil.
Yeah, to follow up with Whitney, English was my second language. So for me, polishing my own English skills as I grew up in this country and whatnot. If it's drastic and I can tell just by reading it that it's off, then yes, I'm not going to dock you points, but will I start skimming through your essay as opposed to reading it thoroughly? Most likely. And that answers another question. Is there any time where we would not read an essay? I'll tell you this much. We collectively, we have well over 25 years of experience between the 4 of us. And I mean, Whitney on the teaching side has more experience than most of us do on the admission side. So reading essays for us is normal. And we've found a way to read through them pretty quickly and understanding and grasping everything that you're saying. So we've gotten pretty good at going through these essays pretty quickly. So another question. Someone once told me that a college essay is about selling yourself. Is that how it should be viewed? Could someone elaborate? I'll let any one of my colleagues step in. Erica, you haven't talked in a little bit, so.
I was completely typing an answer to one of the questions. I'm sorry, which one are we talking about now?
Someone once told me that a college essay is about selling yourself. Is that how it should be viewed, or can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I talked about how you can market yourself or sort of brand yourself. So in essence, I mean, selling is not quite the right word. It's more about choosing what you want to share with us and revealing your own values and beliefs through that storytelling. So you're not having, and please don't list all of your accomplishments in your essay. They're going to be in your extracurricular activities. You don't have to necessarily brag about yourself. Your teacher, counselor recommendations are going to be doing that for you. So use this moment in time for you to just let us get to know you and revealing that personality. But do realize that you're choosing what you want to share. So that's really important in this process.
Okay, because we have less than 50 seconds. Quickly, one piece of advice you give every student throughout the writing essay portion of their application.
Trust yourself. This is your time to shine, and it's an opportunity for you to control what you write about. So just trust yourself.
Try to have fun.
Keep it clean, keep it simple. Tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them.
Mine is be true to yourself, guys. No one knows you better than you, kind of what Rebecca said, and just be honest with us. That's all we're looking for. I think we are about 10 seconds early. This is our contact information to everyone that has signed in. We greatly appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. And I believe Miss Sarah Lindbergh is going to be joining us here soon to wrap us up.
Hi guys, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. When you close this window to the meeting, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this is just one of many session experiences that are being hosted, so please be sure to sign up for additional sessions at strivescan.com/Virginia. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other session recordings at strivescan.com/Virginia. As well, the contact information for these folks is also listed on the registration page as well, so you have it there too. I hope everybody has an excellent evening.